Welcome back to Beauty Marks Podcast, a space where we embrace our marks acquired through our journey. My name is Elizabeth Savion, and welcome to another episode of this podcast. I'm here at Hi Hello Labs in downtown Orlando in this beautiful studio space, which literally they have different rooms set up and they can help you with all creative needs. If you haven't already, make sure also to subscribe to this podcast and leave a review. All of that helps us to grow this podcast, and your guys' words mean a lot. So I care what you guys want to hear more about, or what you guys, what kind of episode guests you would like to hear. And you can always write me also on DM or shoot me an email at beautymarkspodcast@gmail.com. On today's episode, it is bright and early when I am recording this, and so I feel like the coffee hasn't hit my system. And so I decided to do this after a weekend that has been very eventful. And so I expressed on social media that I literally had a lot of social events back to back, and it was all really good. But I feel like my energy has been going out that I need to kind of take a few days to myself. So after this episode, I have another episode, and then I will be going home and resting and just Netflix and chill probably. But on today's episode, I am very excited because I have my best friend back again, and we are both kind of not that early bird.
No.
So, it's just bear with us, but we're really excited for this conversation, and thank you for coming back on the podcast, Ashley Crispin
Sanchez.
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me again. I'm so excited to be here. This amazing place, beautiful place, amazing people working here. So I love being here.
Yeah. At this point, she's a regular.
Not really.
You've been on the podcast 2 to 3 times.
This is my third, I believe.
Yeah, third time. And so it's every time it's warming up. I tell her that eventually I know she'll be speaking on a stage because we're just warming her up. This is all the background stuff for that eventually.
I'm not gonna say no because that comes and bite you. So I'm just gonna stay quiet.
Just not right now.
It's not right now.
Just not right now.
Yeah.
But for today's conversation, we wanted to talk about supporting friendships through different seasons. And so we have these conversations a lot. And so something that has come up, and that's a relevant topic, it's how friendships are not really praised or put at the same priority as relationships. And so we go through life in adulthood trying to figure out, right, a lot of stuff, as all of us do. But sometimes it's just hard to figure out the balance of okay, a friendship is just as important, if not very important, in your life. You've been married, right? Your 20s. How has friendship played a part in your life?
Well, I think your friendship.
She's very selective.
I am very selective, and I think that's good, but it's also bad because before you came into my life, I wouldn't allow myself to have a friendship in that type of intimacy that a friendship like this takes. It's definitely work intimacy, and it takes time. Being married, I have come to understand that it's so important to have friends, and it's really your husband cannot be your whole life, or your family cannot have you be your whole life. I've come to understand the balance of everything. So family is really important. Of course, having a significant other is really important as well, but having friends in your life is really important. And I think we have learned over the years to respect each other and give each other the space and the priority that it is in our lives. For example, I always tell you I don't agree necessarily with people say she's my friend, she'll be there no matter what, but I'm really busy right now. And we have mentioned that before.
Yeah, months, that means months not talking. It's you can talk to someone twice a year, and then that's considered still your best friend.
No.
You're no. They can still be a friend.
It could be a friend.
But that doesn't mean that they know you and they're really there for you through life.
And of course, people might think, you might be hearing this and be but I don't have time. We have been through very difficult seasons in our lives, so we really have not have time to talk. And we don't really, for example, I'll give you an example between our relationship. We don't really talk on the phone. We just text, but we're not really to call each other. If you're calling is what happened.
Yeah.
And it's a 2-second, 911. But when we are both really busy, where we know that we can't see each other, then we take that extra step of prioritizing the time for that 1 hour talk on the phone, which we never do on a regular basis. But if we know that we're going to go 3-4 weeks without seeing each other, then we make sure that we're calling on each other, like, and we take the time, like, hey, I have 30 minutes. I'm on my way to work. Tell me, how's everything? What's going on? Like, I need to know, you know? So, but that's like taking the time, like prioritizing that time to do that. Because it just doesn't happen. If you don't make it happen, it doesn't happen.
No, because it's like life is going to keep going. And this might be something that, like, we're saying this as like a close friend. I have talked about this before, that there are categories of friends, and that's okay. Like, there's friends that you see once in a while and you guys still have that love and respect and care for each other, but it's still a little surface level versus like the people that you do life with. So we're talking more about people that you do life with versus people that you just see here and there, or you guys are mutual friends through other friends. So you see them at an event and you guys catch up. But like, I'm talking about like a friendship to do life with. Those require the time and consistency. So like for me, as I've gotten older, first of all, like I really value like peace and people that are in the same mindset of personal growth and that want to be better people, because a lot of people, we go and we meet through different stages of our life and they sometimes want to stay stuck in, you know, their dysfunction, drama, that kind of stuff. And then you kind of outgrow that stage, and then you need people that are going with you, you know, in a certain path. And it's not to say that those people are bad people. It's just that you don't align anymore. And so when you find your people that you're like, okay, I want to do life with these people, it looks different. And it does require intention versus saying, if I didn't talk to you like for like a month or two, I wouldn't say that you would know me in that way still. Like, yes, you know about me, but like, if I can't even text you or be like, hey, like this is what's going on, or you don't know like what is going on in my life, I really wouldn't say that we're like close friends, in my opinion, right? Because someone else might say, like how we said earlier, that it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to keep up to date. But it's like a relationship that you're married, even though I'm not married yet. You can't just like go away for a week or two or 2 months and be like, oh, well, we're married. It's a commitment. So like, you know, it's like, no, you have to put intentional time to it. And the same thing is with friendships. So it's kind of like, I know that's a very different view for a lot of people, but I feel like how growing up, I saw a relationship as like, when you get to a relationship, it's like you made it. So then everything else doesn't matter anymore. So like your friendships don't matter. And women, we're known for kind of dumping our friends for our relationship. And we do that, I feel, because we prioritize it so much and we feel like this is what really matters, when in reality, once like the high kind of wears off of relationships and you kind of like get used to it and you're like, okay, like you're in a flow, you're like, wait, like I don't have like my people when he's hanging out with his friends or he's doing something with his friends, like who do I have? And a lot of people then later on in life kind of realize like I don't have my own thing for me, and that's when you can feel lost in a relationship.
And I think that kind of happened to me. I know that in the beginning of like my marriage, not that, because at that point we knew each other, but we were not really that close still. That was 9 years ago. It's a long time ago. When you start a relationship, a lot of us just give it all and we forget about everybody else, you know? And I did find, like, I lost myself in the relationship for a little bit. A lot of things did happen in our relationship where, you know, his dad passed away. And there were certain things that made the first few years really hard, where I just dedicated myself to the relationship, his family, and just them. I just wanted them to be okay. Yeah. And that's all good. But at the end of the day, you need someone for you. And I know that's when our friendship actually started growing, because you were like right next to me. And I was like, I don't need you. And you were like, yes, you do, but I'm here. I'm like, just like, let me know. Blink when you need me and I'll be right here. And I think that's what started opening my eyes. Like, wait a second, like it is good to have a friend that is not just your husband. Like, yes, of course, like we are a cult, and when you love someone and you're in a relationship, your husband goes first. Like that is your family, that is your priority. But it is so healthy to go to your friend slash sister slash best friend and just talk and vent. And that is a certain space in your heart that your husband just can't fulfill. You know, it's just, there's space for everything in our hearts, you know, and I feel it's really unhealthy when then it's also a lot of responsibility for them to make them the all.
Yeah.
No, you're my best friend. You're also my husband. You're also, the father of my kids. And you're also like all of these things. That's a lot of roles in one person. You know, you're my family, all of these things. Instead of
the expectations.
The expectations, it's a lot. It's like we can do life together and all of this. And he is my best friend. We do talk about everything. But it's really nice. It's really healthy for me to also have my friends that I can count on and talk. But it does take responsibility. It does take time. And I told you the other day, like, I feel a sense of responsibility in the friendship. It is a relationship. Yeah. It is a certain, like, amount of, like, almost like a significant other, because I feel a certain responsibility that if you were to be sad, or I knew, because I can tell just by your eyes, something's wrong. And I'm too busy right now. Like, I can't really, like, if I don't take the time to make sure you're okay, then we're not as close as we are making it seem, you know? Like, I feel a sense of responsibility. I need to be there for you, like, because that is the role that I'm in your life. Yeah. At the moment. Yeah. That is my responsibility as a friend, to show up for you. Yeah. You know, and to be there for you.
And those are, like, it's both ways.
It's both ways.
Because, like, someone might be like, okay, but that's a lot. But it's, like, it's reciprocated relationships. Not, like, if you're always, of course, in that. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Like, when you're in toxic friendships and toxic relationship, like, certain things change. You know, but how you're saying, it's, like, the responsibility that it's, like, it's a genuine care. And also, we've communicated, like, hey, this is, like, we work very differently, and that's the same as relationships. It's like getting to know, like, their love language, getting to know, like, their personality. It's like
what triggers, what, like, you know,
what things, and, like, having those hard conversations too, because literally I've seen so many girls, and I have been guilty of it too, that it's like you're willing to give so many chances to, like, your relationship and your boyfriend, and you give a lot of grace, but then to your friendship you're like, oh, cut her off.
They do one
you're
thing.
Done. Yeah. One thing, you're done. Like, so fake. And it's like, ma'am, you gave that man so many chances. Like, what is this?
No, I've messed up, and I'm like, Liz, like, I shouldn't have said that. Like, you know, like, I will work on that. I feel like, you know, but also people need to be at that place where I'm willing to work. Like, if you come to me like that really hurt my feelings, I will take it seriously. I'm like, okay, Liz, like, I promise that I will work on that. Yeah. You know, or I won't do that again, or you know, like, let me know. Like, we have that open communication where we can work with each other like that.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of growth as well. Yeah. Because sometimes, like, you will go through those friendships and relationships that aren't healthy. And so we can talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you support friends when they're in toxic relationships or friendships? I know that I've been in dysfunctional friendships where it was like, you know, like the competition or the comparison or the jealousy, or like the always trying to, like, one up each other. And sometimes it's hard from the outside, right? Because you see it, like, the dysfunction in a friendship, because you're like, girl, maybe that's not your closest friend. Or, like, if that's your bestie, I don't know why you're not talking to her about it. Yeah. And you're talking to me about it, like, you know? And so it's hard when you're in it, you don't see it, because you want to have, it's a lot of things. It can be that you lack boundaries, that you are a people pleaser. Like, I've talked about it before. We've talked about it, like, how boundaries have played a big part in our lives. People pleasing, like, the struggle to, like, say what you need and say things because we think that conflict is going to, like, be the worst thing, when no, like, you not saying things and not being honest is what can eventually cause the chaos.
But I think that's one of the red flags, right? That you know that you're in a toxic friendship when you don't feel comfortable communicating those things. For example, okay, like, if I am not comfortable telling you that I'm unavailable for certain things, she's gonna get upset. So I end up going either way, or I end up, like, stressing myself with the fear of conflict instead of, you should be in healthy relationships. It should feel safe to be able to come and communicate. This is where I'm at right now. Yeah. You know, and, like, to just super plain, clear, easy. Like, you don't have to practice and recite for it. Just super easy.
Yeah. But do you think that though comes natural, or, like, that actually comes with time to build that relationship? Because you know how some people say, like, oh, from right away that you meet someone, like, you click, and that's the friendship.
Here's the thing. I do feel like that just doesn't happen with everyone. It doesn't happen with everyone. So if the person that you were, like, starting a relationship, like a friendship with, it's in an emotional place where they can sustain that relationship, I feel it should be natural, you know? Like, even with people that I don't really know, like, hey, communicate. I need you to communicate. Like, you know? But, you know, certain people don't have the maturity enough to understand certain things. And well, are you really at that level to have that friend in your life then? Like that. Because you guys can go out. You can, you know, you can have fun. You can eat. There's different levels of friendships. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we go through life, and it's hard, it's overwhelming, but it's constantly like, okay, like I can still love this person, and that person can still be my friend, but it's just not at this level. It's more like just to hang out, or to go out for breakfast, or to go to a salsa class, you know, to do certain things. But when it comes to like life, I have my other group of people that's where I go when I need different things in life.
Yeah. And that's usually a smaller group. So it's not that you have to have, like, I know in college or, like, when you're in your early 20s, like, it's like you see everybody, like, out with, like, 15, 20 people. And you would be surprised how those people, and I have been in the rooms where it's like, out of all of those people, they maybe have one person, right? That they're, like, my best friends. But then it's like they have maybe one person that they actually are, like, really close to, and they actually know like that, which is sad because, right, like, we see in society, and we see that, like, it's like we want the big friends, but it's like it's not just about having the friends. It's about cultivating friendships and deeper, meaningful relationships. That's what matters. It's not just having people to take the cute pictures and to have that, like, that's great, right? But I think that what really matters when you actually go through hard times is, like, those people that actually really care and know you and are like, hey, I haven't heard from you in this time, like, actually check in with you, not just, like, when they need something, or when it's like, hey, like, I'm bored, so let me hit up this friend, you know? And I've been in friendships like that it was so hard because I felt like I owed people certain stuff, but then I'm like, wait, how am I feeling? Like, I don't feel like this relationship, like, I feel like I'm that person for them all the time, but I can't say that they're that person that I go to for certain things. And that's okay. But then it's also understanding then what place am I in their life, and not putting myself higher or thinking myself higher in their life.
No, then you meet them.
Yeah. And be like, okay,
you meet them
you're putting level 3 energy. I'm putting level 3 energy. And not to say, because I believe that we're supposed to leave people better than they came. However, when it comes to, like, people that you're doing life with, if you feel like you've already communicated, if you feel like you've already told them, like, hey, like, I feel like we don't see each other anymore, and I would love to, like, you kind of express how much you value the relationship and you feel like it's not reciprocated,
no change.
Then you're like, okay, like, you know, I need to kind of step back. So it's not to say that you give up and, like, you're like, oh, I'm gonna treat people how they treat me. No, sometimes it is in different seasons, and we'll talk about that. Different seasons does require different levels of investment.
Yeah, and of you. Not every person gets to see all the parts of you. Yeah. And gets all of you. You know, I know, for example, I'm a little bit more serious. But I have a very, like, strong love where I'm, like, all in. But not everyone in my life gets that. Yeah. There's only certain people in my life that gets that because they've well earned it as well, you know, throughout the years, and they have showed me and they have been there. And that's where I go all in.
And so what would you say for, like, supporting friends that are in toxic friendships? What do you feel like, how have you been able to manage that? Or even stuff that you've seen with me?
It's hard because you don't really want to, like, step over and be, like, controlling, right? Yeah. So I have let you be when it comes to that. But I would say that the only thing is to just remind your friend and reminding you of your worth. Like, sometimes I would see you chasing a little bit or struggling to communicate certain things. And I'm like, you know, you deserve more than this, right? Like, it's not okay for you to be chasing. Yeah. It's okay if they're busy. It's okay if their priorities have changed or if it has just, like, the friendship somehow changed. Yeah. That's fine. But you don't have to do the chasing. You don't have to do, like, that is hard to watch from me. Like, so I've just reminded you, like, you deserve more.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have 1,000 friends. It's okay to have, like, 1 or 2 close friends. It's okay.
How to support a friend when it comes to, like, when they're in unhealthy dynamics. I think it's still being that safe place of still listening and still being there regardless, because it's still their journey. And I feel like until you see it, it's very hard to, like, how you said, like, step in, because then like I feel like if you start creating a space where it's like, I've already told you, like, a million times, so, like, at this point, then I'm gonna start shutting out. And so some people, they can't, like, some people, they get to the place that they're like, I can't do it anymore, and that has to be communicated, like, hey, like, until you're ready to, like, really face it, I can't be that person for you. Yeah. And that's like there's levels to it. It's not to say that there's, like, a right way. But I feel like with some friendships or some relationships, you can kind of walk with someone to be like reminding them of who they are and what they're worth, and then reminding them also of, like, how do you feel? Because like, when someone's venting to you, you can you already see in their body language, and, like, if they're feeling anxious about stuff. So I always ask, when someone's telling me about a situation, I'm like, how do you feel about it? Like, are you feeling okay? Like, do you feel like it could have gone a different way? Like, to hear their perspective, because sometimes they haven't seen it yet, or sometimes they feel it, but they don't know how to communicate it. So then they're able to make the decision on their own, versus you saying, like, she's a trash friend or whatever, It's like, that's not. No. Because plus, they're probably going to still be friends with them. Yeah. So it's like, you don't want to be the person that's initiating or starting some drama with other friendships. So I feel like when people are talking about I'm like, how do you feel about it? Okay, like, I don't give my opinion unless someone asks.
And I always try to acknowledge in the conversation your side. Yeah. So, like, I'm working with your side. I don't know how she's feeling. Exactly. I don't know her opinion. Room, so she's not in the room. So it's like, how are you feeling about it? Yeah. So I try to communicate that instead.
Yeah, that's a good point. And how about then with toxic relationships? Because a lot of us, I've walked through a toxic relationship with, loved ones, and I've also been in that place. And that has, that affects you, right? Because that's the way, like, when it comes to friendships, it's one thing, right? That can't hurt you. But then it's like a relationship that dictates a lot of you. And that can sometimes, how we were talking about, you start kind of isolating, because you're in this dynamic. I've been there, so I'm guilty of it, where it's like, you're like, this is it. Like, and it's like, you love your friends, but at the same time, you struggle with the battle of, like, man, like, I know that they're kind of right, but, like, I love this and I want this so bad. And it's like, I'm just not ready to let go. So how have you been able to manage, like, with friends, of, like, seeing them walk through those hardships?
Walking through that with your relationship in specific, since it was so long, in the beginning, you do what everybody does in a friendship. You're there, you're listening, and then you start noticing this might not be the healthiest relationship for you. And you talk it out for 1,000 times, and you listen about it, and you hear about it. But then I feel like when it gets hard is when you, as a friend, then you notice, okay, this is a very bad relationship for you. And I know that you shouldn't be there. And I think that is the deciding point, because that's something to your heart, when, like, you acknowledge and you're like, oh no, like, I know 100% that you shouldn't be in that relationship. And when you see your friend not wanting to get out, it's really hard, because you want to be there for them and you want to, like, get them out, but they need to want to get out first. Yeah. So I would say that what worked for us was, I just was there listening until I couldn't listen anymore. And I remember having to set those boundaries with you. Well, I'm here to support you, and I'm here to listen about it. But it got to the point where it was so unhealthy that I felt that I was more upset about it than you. Yeah. And I was like, but I'm literally fighting out more than you are for yourself. And I found myself very invested and so done more than you. So I remember having the conversation where I was like, okay, like, Liz, as much as I love you, this is really, like, unhealthy for me, because yet again, we are here again, and you are not out. and this is really unhealthy. You had physical signs. You had like headaches. You had so many signs that this was so unhealthy for you. And as a friend, it's really hurtful. It hurts to see you in so much pain. I'm like, whenever you're ready to make the jump, call me, because I'll hold your hand. I'll be there. Yeah. But in this transition, you're going to have to figure out on your own, because you're literally hitting the same wall over and over. And I'm hitting it with you, because that's what friends do, right? Like, oh, here we go again. Oh, here we go again. We're going.
Okay. Because we could have like hours conversations. Yes. And I was like in a trauma bond. I was like in an addiction. And I would tell you, like, it's just like, it's like you're torn, and someone that has been in a toxic relationship, you know how hard it is, because it's like you're not, like, you don't know how life is going to be after. Yes. So it's so scary. And you've been in this dysfunctional on and off for so long that it's like you hear all this stuff, but you don't even believe it, because your self-esteem is low, your confidence is low. So you, like, people telling you all these affirmations and everything, it just like, I don't see myself that way. And like, I don't know if I can survive like without it, you know? So I feel like that was hard, because I needed you, and I needed like my close people, and there was multiple people that told me like, I just can't anymore. And that was so hard, because like right from the outside it's like, wow, like that's so mean. But it's like, no, I saw how much they were there for me, and it was to the point that it was so many times that I had to continue to finally get to the place where I'm like, I can't do this anymore, versus them. Because even my parents went out to try to say things, like people would like vouch for me in certain things, and then I would go back. And so I think those are very difficult. And I know that if you've ever been in unhealthy dynamics or even unsafe dynamics, it takes like 7+ times for you to finally get out. So those situations, I'm still glad that even though you did set those boundaries with me, you were still there for me, and you would still check in, and there were still people that checked in. But it wasn't until I started, I feel like my therapy, I think that was maybe for you, when I started telling you things that you would tell me, but I heard it from my therapist, and I was like, oh my God, I think
I'm like, I literally told you that last year.
And you're like, okay. So what gave you hope, like as a friend, to kind of be like, stick it out with me? I mean, because I know you care about me, but like, what also made you feel like, I believe that
that's not the thing, because I would have been with you regardless. You know, you would have stayed or not, because that's the thing too. We need to, and I just want to make this point very quick. When you have friendships like this, it's an unconditional love, right? So unless you have to do something really, really, really bad for me to be like, oh, I'm out, you know? But it's an unconditional love. That means that regardless you stayed in that relationship, I was still going to be there no matter what. It was my level of commitment in the subject, you know? But I was
more towards that.
Towards that subject, but not you, because we would still hang out and we would still do things together, and we would talk about other areas of your life that were also important. Just that subject, I was like, I'm kind of like, let's pause that subject for a little while. So regardless you were in and out, I was still going to be there for you, and the love is unconditional. However, when I saw that you woke up a little bit and you started getting the help that you needed, and you didn't give up, you were like, okay, like, I know I'm not healthy, and you started working on yourself, I'm like, okay, here we go again. Like, okay, let's go. Let's go. I think that really helped to see you getting the help for yourself and wanting better for you. Because I think it got to the point like, no, like, I know this is not good. Like, I know I deserve more. So I'm going to go and find better.
And then it started going like less. It would be like longer time. It's like a relapse. Like it's kind of like I haven't like gone back or I haven't, you know, because it was like I was good for some time.
And then she wouldn't tell me. I'll be like, I know, I can just tell.
She's like, you talk to him. I was like, it's like, it's crazy when you have a friend that not only sees you in that way, but also like, in at least with the toxic relationships, it's like it does so much to you that it's like it's so obvious. And so now, right, like, because I've worked through a lot of that stuff, now when I've walked friends through that, it's like my karma.
It's frustrating, huh?
You're like, how does it feel?
I know.
Because I'm like,
so what did you tell her? Did she listen?
God was like, you went through that, so now I'm gonna give you so much grace and compassion to see how it is on the other side, to actually like walk with someone through that. And that has been like also like a blessing to be able, because of my own pain, and I get it, like I literally get it, that now I'm like, even though, yes, it's frustrating, I do have a little bit more compassion for it, because I'm like, it is really hard. And it is something that it's just like, until you see yourself the way first that God sees you, and until you see like what you're worth and valuable, and that like someone is affecting that and like can hinder you from growing, like until you see that and that you're like, wait, this is the future that I want, and this person is clearly not going to be able to give me that. And it's okay, and I have to let it go, you know, which I feel like then I'm able now to walk with friends to be like, you know, I'm here for you, I'm reminding you your worth. And also I think you've would tell me that a lot. You're like, what kind of marriage that you want that you talk about, is this person, whoever it is, capable and able to give you that? Because I hear you talk about that you want a healthy relationship, that you want someone to be there and do life with you. But is this person in particular going to be able to do that with you? And that I feel like is the realization versus like shaming the person. Because I have had friends too when they're like, oh, like not again. Like, and it kind of makes you feel like if they've also never walked through, because I told you that one time, I'm like, well, you've never walked through like a toxic relationship, so you don't get it. You've been in a like, you know, a healthy marriage, which is like a blessing, and I desire that. But it's hard because it's like you sometimes feel in those moments that you're like, but you have it together, like you don't get it, and it's hard. Like I don't know how to not think this way. And you're like, well, I have other challenges, you know. So like we would always kind of like go back and forth with that, because it's like, yeah, but like what I really desire, you know, I've never had.
Yeah, so a reminder was, but this is not it though.
Yeah.
You can still have those things, right? And I think that was a reminder that I kept giving you throughout, towards the end, that you were battling that like in and out. And I'm like, we're at the point that is no longer that he called me back. Or he didn't answer my text. We're getting a little older here. Is this person going to be a good husband? And is this person going to be there for my kids? Is he going to respect me? Is he? So when I would ask you those questions, because it's almost projecting the future, right? Yeah. So we're drowning ourselves right now in the calls and the texts and all the little drama. But if you see and try to look at the big picture, if the answer is no, then why are you wasting your time right now? Because you're going through all of this and you solve it, but then you don't want him as a husband. You don't see him as a husband. So why are you even in it right now? When regardless, it's going to end.
Yeah, it's just when. Yeah. And it's when you get to the place, because I know that everybody would tell me, like, you have to do it. It's not going to be easy. Like, you're going to have to do it.
I wanted to do it for you so bad.
And people like, literally would be like, I will send the text. And they'll be like, no.
Let's go. We will change your phone number. They will do whatever it takes.
Yeah. But it's so important, especially if you're in one of those dynamics, to find safe people and be honest and be like, hey, I know that I've gone back and I've had to make amends with friendships, because toxic relationships take you out and they make you paint this picture. And even I've expressed with you that I've had to make amends with my family, because I was not the best sister or daughter during that time, because I really completely like was like, I don't want you guys, like, you are a hater towards my relationship. And so that caused a really, like, a lot of pain with my family, that now, years later, I've had moments with, like, literally, like, tears in my eyes of being like, I'm so sorry. Like, if you met me during these years, like, I'm so sorry. Which is, like, hard. Like, I feel, like, emotional about it, because I'm like, I know that was, like, a person that, like, I don't even recognize, you know, of myself, because I was, like, so lost, but I still needed that support, and I still needed, like, the people, you know, and, like, I'm grateful for the people that did stay, and that, you know, I've been able to, like, reconnect and be like, they don't see me like that version anymore. You know, there's people that have told me, like, I don't even recognize you anymore. Like, you're, like, happy, like, you're funny, like, you're fun to be around, versus, like, who I was during those years was different.
And I respect that, but also I want for you to have a little bit of more grace, because I know the list before and the list during and the list after. And even though that it was hard to see you going through that, I feel like that process was very necessary for you. I think that relationship was necessary for you to build who you are now, because I don't think your personality, I don't think who you are who you are because you walk through certain things. Did you prolong it way too long? Yes, it was unnecessary, the amount of pain and tears, because you prolonged it too long. But I think the relationship itself taught you a lot and shaped a lot of who you are now, because you were able to see in the mirror a lot of the weaknesses that you had, that you were bringing into the relationship, and that you needed to work on things. Without that relationship, you would still have areas that you would need to work on. So I think it was really good. However, you prolonged it too long, and that caused a lot of pain.
Thank you for saying that. And I think it definitely refined me, and it did make me very different, because now even I value my family and friends so much more, that I feel like now dating, I go up front with that. Like, first, Jesus, my community, my family. Like, if you don't like them, I'm sorry. Like, that's, if you don't align with this, I'm sorry. Like, we don't even have to go
which before it wasn't like that.
It was like, well, you know, maybe, like, you know, they'll warm up, you know, which I feel like that has taken a lot. So it's like my values are so aligned, and it's like I don't know. It's like I see myself very differently now too, so I'm able to show up differently. So yeah, I just want to encourage you, if you are that friend to someone that is in a toxic relationship, like, stick with them, pray for them, be there for them, and be honest with them, you know, and like just know that there is hope for them to get out. Because even my story, like, I hope it encourages someone to be like, you are able to have a beautiful life after some really traumatic things that you walk through. And you're able to build and heal friendships too after that. And so the last point I wanted to talk about was through mental health, like how to support someone through mental health. And we walked each other through that as well, through like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, a lot of stuff that we both like have experienced throughout our life, that we have been honest with each other. How has that worked for you, and like how do you see it like with supporting a friend?
Mental health, that's a big one. That's a big one, because if anything, I would say that's the hardest part of a friendship. Why I say that, it's because I'm gonna give again my example. Like, in the last maybe 2 years, I was in a very low like place in my life, and I will never forget when we went to the beach this one time, and I was miserable. I don't even know why we were there. I was miserable.
Let's just get in front of the beach.
Like, I was so miserable. But I was just not myself. And I remember thinking, like, wow, like, why is she even here? I am not fun right now. I am miserable. Like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to be here. But that is the kind of love that you hopefully can find in friendships, right? So how to walk through that with a friend, it's interesting, because you have to be there for them and allow them to be sad and allow them to go through it, and you can go through it with them. But you also have to exercise the friendship card, which is, all right, we need to get up. It's been a little too long. We need to schedule the therapy session. We need to seek help, or we need to figure it out. So it's like, you know, you need to balance it out. And I think that's when I say that friendship is responsibility, is because when we're going through those hard seasons, you gotta show up with intention and responsibility, where I'm gonna be there for you. But if you're sticking like too long, wish you had the conversation for me. You're like, all right, Ashley, but like life is not like this. You're just in a season right now. You know, this is a season. How was it for you?
Because I've struggled with my mental health for a long time. I think I was able to see it as not a burden for me, to be honest. This is just like my own journey with you, that I saw it as like, man, she really is struggling, and like, I'm gonna be here, like, regardless. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna help her. I'm gonna encourage her. There was days that you would be like, you know, I don't want to do anything. And I'm like, I'm going to go over. Like, let's go. When am I going to see you again? Like, I was kind of like pushing that. Or sometimes like even how you're saying of like, it's okay. Like, we don't have to talk. We don't have to get deep. We don't have to do, if like you're not at that place, I'm okay to still be there with you. And I feel like with friendships, sometimes we feel like we need to still put on a face and we still need to like show up like our best. Like, we need to be the funnest. Like, but it's like, it's okay to let our guards down and be like, I'm really struggling right now. Yeah. And I need a friend, and I don't know what that looks like, and I don't know how that's going to be, but like, I do need someone to check in on me. So if you're willing to do that and asking the conversation, and I would ask you like, okay, what do you need from me, you know, during this time? I know it's going to be a little different. So like, do you need me to schedule the appointments? Or like, I remember it was like during that time too, I felt like you needed to go to therapy, you know, because I've been through my walk and my journey.
No, I needed to
go. But you needed to want to go. And I think that's the really big part is that you still needed to be intentional about working through your mental health because I can't control anything that you do. And we've talked about this, like with depression, I feel like that's something that it can get really deep really fast. And we would have those conversations to be like, are you gonna harm yourself? Like, the way that you're talking about
that
yourself.
Conversation to me sticks out very clearly because no one had ever done that with me before, where I didn't even expect it at all. And again, this was probably one of my lowest times in my life, and she was like, I need to ask, right? It's my responsibility, and I need to ask, and I need you to be 100% honest. Are you going to harm yourself? Are you in a place where you are thinking suicidal thoughts? Are you okay? Like, and I was like, oh my, I was so caught off guard because no one had asked me something like that. Is so strong, but it's so real. And those are thoughts that we have in our minds, but we don't express them, you know, but because we sometimes don't have the safe space to talk about it. Thank God at the moment I wasn't, but it was very refreshing, and it was so good to be asked that clear, like so casual. Like, if it is, we can work it out, we can talk about it, and we can find a solution. But if you are, I need to know. And that was like really good to hear.
Yeah, that was hard to ask.
It is hard.
Because I was the first one out of my friend group really to also go to therapy. And so I feel like I got this new vocabulary and these questions and like this kind of knowledge about it that I'm like, I wish someone would have asked me.
Of course.
Because I've definitely been there and I've shared on the podcast of like moments that I thought those things. And I know it was like by God's protection that I, you know, like, because it's like when you don't know, you kind of are like, oh no, she's still happy though.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Look at her out there, you know, like she's still the idea of what being happy or
the high functioning
like.
Depression.
But that's high functioning.
It is high functioning.
And you're very much like that too. So it's like you can be like, I'm fine. But I'm like, no, how are you really?
And this is why it's really important to have really deep friendships because no one knew. My therapist, Liz, and my husband, not even my family. I had to sit down and tell my family, this is what's happening. And they were like, what? They were so surprised because of the level of high functioning that we have. But this is why it's so important to have friendships that you can tell them everything, you know, because you knew where I was at just because we talk and we feel safe with each other. And we have that space where I can literally vomit exactly what's in my brain, like with no judgment. I can just vomit my thoughts. And you're like, all right, well, maybe you can say it this way instead.
Like the
unfiltered version. But it's so important because when you don't have that, then you're walking by yourself. Then you're really on your own. And that's when it gets dangerous. That's when life gets really tricky, when you're doing it all on your own.
We wait a lot until we're really struggling. And I mean, we see it a lot with like celebrities. We see it a lot with in the media of people that you're like, wow, they're so happy, they're so successful, but like they still struggle. But it's because they're so isolated and they don't feel like they have a safe place. And I'm sure at a different standard of like the expectations and people that you feel like you don't know who your real friends are. Like that's a lot. But for us, it's like making sure to at least have that one person. And if not, then that's why a therapist, honestly, sometimes I know my therapist has been like sometimes the first person I tell stuff to because I'm not ready yet to deal with other things. And then I'm like, I know I said this, but like, is this normal? And then they're like, yeah, like you can say whatever you want, you know, like that's what I'm here for, like to help you. Because sometimes it's like we think that all these dark thoughts, we're like, oh my God, what would you think if I was to tell you this? And it's like, it's okay. Those are just thoughts, but what are we going to do with those thoughts? That's what really matters, you know? So I feel like first with what you're saying, it's like being honest and open to your friends, and also like seeing kind of, that's also the intentional part, because I feel like when we don't notice people, we're not able to then realize when they are really struggling, because we're like, you know what? If I didn't know certain things about you and certain things, I wouldn't be able to have those questions or be like, you seem a little off. Like, what is going on?
It's the level of intimacy.
Yeah.
Because I've allowed you already throughout the years to reach a level of intimacy likewise. It's the same with me and you. I'm like, you're a little off. Like, what's going on? Yeah. And, you know, if you know that your friend is going through hard things, like if they lost a job, if they're going through changes in life, hormonal changes, life changes, just pay attention in those moments. Be a little extra. Be a little intentional in those moments, because that's usually when things start happening, and, you know, and when they don't want to talk. I isolate myself. So she knows. Like, if I go missing for 2 weeks, she's like, what's happening?
Yeah. Well,
why are you sad?
Wouldn't be missing for 2 weeks. I would be like, what is happening?
When I really talk, I'm like, I'm good. Everything's good. Yeah. And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the intentional part of when you hear, because like something else too, it's like if I can ask you, okay, what do you need? And then you're like, oh no, I'm fine. So then you might be like, okay, well, she told me she's fine. Yeah. But it's like, no, like you're like, okay, you just went through this. Like maybe you haven't processed yet what happened, but like you're grieving or you're going through something, or like like what do you need? And sometimes you need to learn the vocabulary to say, I do need help, or like, hey, I actually do need company, like because I do feel very lonely, or I have, you know, so it takes a lot of that.
That's hard to do.
Yes. So this is hopefully like something that you can start thinking about when it comes to like supporting friendships. I know there's so many parts of it and there's so many ways, and like being a real friend, I feel like does take intentional time and work, and it doesn't just come natural, and it's not like you can just like hop in, hop out like whenever. It's like it does require a level of commitment, like in a relationship, but it doesn't feel like an obligation. And I hope that's what you guys get from it, because it comes from a genuine place of care versus saying like when you've been in toxic friendships where it's like, I have to do this, if not they're gonna get mad.
You want to be.
Yeah.
Like I love this person. I want to be there.
Yes. And it's like, I want to make sure that they're okay because they're a valuable person.
No, it comes from your heart. You want to be there for them, and you want to make sure they're okay.
Yeah. Exactly. So I hope that you remember that there are good people that want genuine connections and friendships, and you can find those people. I have been through my struggles with friendships, and I have walked through different things with friendships that have been hard, but they've also shaped me and also helped me to redefine what a real friend is, and for me to be a better friend. Because same with like relationship, like you also want to make sure that you're being a better friend, and you're like, okay, what do I need to do for myself? And as we get healthy ourselves, then we're able to show up healthy in all areas of our life, not just our relationships. And I feel like that is another indicator with us. Is like, I feel like me working on myself, you also intentionally working on yourself, we're able to like be like, ooh, like I see my progress, and we still have moments that we're like, ooh, I'm kind of like reverting to old patterns or things, or like I kind of said that a little wrong, or like I took it personal when I know that wasn't your intention. So it's like us also being more self-aware with that.
Definitely.
Do you have any last encouragements or thoughts about friendships in general, or how to support someone?
Really use your mind and heart. Don't ever be in a relationship with a friend where you feel neglected, abused, taken advantage of course, like that's not good. And it's okay for some friendships to end. I feel like that's also, I feel like a lot of people also like hold on to like the time that they have been in a friendship, that they don't want to let it go. Like, no, we've been friends for like 10 years. Hey, if that changed, and if you guys, maybe it's okay for that to end and close that chapter of your life. But
Yeah, that's true. The endings are also allows for new beginnings and new possibilities in friendship. And I feel like that's also like abundance mindset. You thinking like, oh my God, this is the only last friend, when it's like, there's people that I can't, like, I have yet to meet. And there's friendships that I have yet to make, versus thinking these are my only people. Which sometimes when we're used to, when you feel insecure or you feel like someone's going to abandon you, that's when like the controlling part of you comes out, which is, it's part of areas that we need to heal. So it's all things that we've worked through. I can say that I've been a bad friend. I can acknowledge that I haven't always been the best friend. I haven't always been the best of anything, you know, but I also can acknowledge areas that I've had to heal or make amends with, and being willing to acknowledge like areas that have still yet to get better and grow for myself. And I think that's a really big part of being a good friend, is you being able to like not just say, look at her with all her problems, like, no, there's areas in me that I'm still yet to get better. So thank you so much for being part of the podcast.
You're welcome.
This is a good conversation, and I know we all have friends, and I feel like this resonates with a lot of us, not only as women, but as you showing up in different stages of friendships and walking people through it. So thank you so much for being a part.
Of course.
And I'm grateful for your friendship.
I'm grateful as well.
So thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's podcast episode. I hope that you got something out of it, that you were encouraged. And if this resonates with you, share it with a friend, tag us on social media that you listen to it. And I just hope that you know that there are people that you have yet to meet, and friendships that you can dive in deeper with them over surface level friendships. And so I hope that you subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, and I'll see you guys next week.